Okay. Um. Yeah. This is awesome. Alrighty. Well, welcome back welcome to the Hose Podcast. And no, it's not HOES. It's HOSE. Okay. Let's get that thing straightened out for sure. Probably gonna be doing that every episode because who knows when you'll start. You start from this episode, you start from the last one. Who knows? No idea. But hi, it's your host, and I hate saying host. It's your guy. It's your dude. It's your car buddy. You know, you host. And no, we don't have a name for the podcast. Okay, we will not have a name. That's just too much work. Unless I come up with a pretty good one, then you know, if that just happens, that just happens. But anyway, though, but yeah, hi, I'm host. I'm here to just have a nice conversation with the void is all. Because anytime I get off of work, this happens. It doesn't happen here. It happens in a group chat I'm in. And I just talk for tens of twenties of thirties of minutes. And honestly, I don't feel heard sometimes. And probably doesn't help. To be honest, I don't think a lot of people are going to sit here and listen to this. That's all I'm going to say. I just feel it's a nice relief. It's a nice de-stressor, I guess you could say, for me personally. Because I know I'm not expecting anyone to be on the other line. I'm not expecting anybody to listen to this. I'm not even expecting to get one person to listen to this. That I know. I'm not expecting anything. And the thing is, this is what this is all about. And you know what's funny? I had this conversation today. I sat there in the lounge while I work and I was texting the group chat and I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna start it. You know? I'm just gonna start the podcast. That's it. Start this yap session, which I just talk for hours. And it's only one host. And also they were like, maybe one host wouldn't be that fun, that interesting. Stuff like that, right? But the thing is, it's not about being interesting. You know? It's not even about being entertaining either. Because sometimes a lot of us want to be something for other people, right? You know, we're all human, right? And it's like 90% of the time I'm that kind of person. I'm that person that wants to be that other person for other people, you know. And I never think about myself. At least I try not to. Because sometimes I feel selfish. And that's something I truly don't want to come across as, oh, if you think about yourself, you're selfish. No, that's not the case. It's just, I personally feel like a lot more people should be, should be quote unquote selfish. I guess. I don't know if that came across the way I wanted. But that's fine. People don't have to fully understand you either. You could be your own person, you know? The reason why you're walking out into the street and just going on a misadventure, ain't nobody gotta know why you're doing that. Reason why you're making art, nobody gotta know why you're doing that. The whole reason you started a podcast, nobody has to know. Me personally, I'm gonna tell you. But before we jump into that, I just want to say a few things. Just a few things. Which I feel will lead into the whole reason I started this. So, ever since middle school, there's been this idea, you know, it's brewed in the back of my mind for a while. And it's like, oh, you know, start a podcast, start something where you talk to your friends and, you know, you do all that, right? But as time goes on, it becomes harder. And slowly but surely, that idea kind of faded from everyone's mind. But not mine. For me in particular, it's something that every summer I get up and I'm like, I really want to do it. And part of me was afraid of doing it, um, because of a few reasons. I feel number one was because of family in particular. Which, hey, if family is listening, hello, hi, love all of y'all. Um, and it was because I felt like it couldn't be my genuine self with them being present, which slowly but surely, and after turning 21 and all this other deal, I feel that was never the case. I just kind of truly felt that for no reason. And, well, not fully for no reason, but, at least the family members that could listen to this, at least in terms of them, it was for no reason. Older people don't know how to really use the internet in terms of being able to find me, but that's fine, right? That's fine. More of a creative outlet for me, and less fear. But anyway, it's just that's kind of partially the reason why I wanted to start this now. Because, like I said, after being 21, after getting over that fear, and finally sitting down and realizing that I can do it, is all it took, partially. The other half of this is because, well, as mentioned earlier, I do talk a lot. I talk a lot, especially when it comes to my friends. And not to say I personally feel like they don't care or they don't really listen 90% of the time, which factually might be true, but it's something that less and less is bothering me and more wants me to keep talking, right? And at some point, it feels like not a fully a waste of breath per se, but it feels like I can put this somewhere and they could catch up later, you know, if they really wanted to, if they really cared about it, you know, which I doubt a lot of people would sit and listen to me, at least out of them, because I talk way too much to begin with. And here's the thing. Here's the other thing. I've also come to the conclusion, and this is not a bad conclusion, by the way, but I've come to the conclusion that people don't really care. And now that sounds bad, right? But I don't mean it in a bad way, I guess you could say. What I'm trying to say is, in terms of the little things, in terms of the way you dress, in terms of what you call it, the things you might be saying, or the quantity of things you might be saying. In fact, people do care, but the thing is, 90% of them really don't, you know? And now that sounds completely probably false for sure, but that's the mindset I've gotten myself into. The mindset that has led me down this path of making a podcast and doing things that I've been wanting to do for a while. You know? Like my tattoo and tongue piercing. Those are the two things I've done this year so far. And I plan on doing more. But the thing is, it's all stemmed from the idea that people don't care. Because it's all you, man. Don't worry about it. And maybe sometimes people do care, right? Could be positively, could be negatively. But that shouldn't be keeping you from doing what you want to do. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, that's basically the second half of it. I just stopped caring and realized that maybe this is the way forward. Talking to myself into an endless void. Maybe they'll listen, maybe they don't. That's fine. That is so fine with me, man. But that's pretty much it to begin with. That is why we're here. And of course, eventually I might have people on the cast, right? I might have people here. I'm of course recording this in my car because, well, doing this in the room with my brother, it just seems like it wouldn't end very well. Because he already thinks I'm annoying, so there's no point in really pushing that more forward. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, though. But yeah, they'll show up every so often, I hope. They'll show up in fun, creative ways, maybe, because I try and be a fun, creative person as often as I can. Even though it really doesn't come off that way, but sometimes I try. For sure, I definitely do try. But yeah, it's a nice stress reliever to not only talk to yourself or talk to an empty void or talk in general, but the occasional being able to talk to someone face to face or talk to someone that's here or in a call or someone who wants to talk to you. It's nice. Like today, for example, my coworker. Um, Me and him are pretty chill guys. Like we, whatchamacallit, we get along and stuff, and he's a very interesting guy. And it's pretty cool just to be able to sit down with someone that wants to know where you've been, or what's going on, or what's happening, right? And I've been gone from work for about 3 weeks, so being able to get onto the job site he's on and being able to have a conversation with him was also very nice because that's a conversation I also wanted to have. And it's like, it was endless talking to the point where we almost didn't finish up our job or our work, what we had to do. And that's something I miss, you know? There's this other friend, we're still friends, of course, and we would talk occasionally, very occasionally. Like they'd go away for long periods of time. Like I'm talking like 6 months to almost the entire year, and we'd catch up over a phone call. We'd call and be like, "Hey, like what's up?" And we'll update each other on our lives and stuff. And it'll be texting, and it was honestly just nice because it was those nice little pockets and little moments in which I was able to talk to someone that wanted to talk to me, that I wanted to talk to them. It was mutual. It was a mutual conversation. And I'm not saying the mundane conversations you have with friends that you might see as often as you do aren't isn't as special. But you have to admit sometimes those hit a little bit more, you know? And maybe that's why me personally, have fallen in love with the idea of leaving everything, of ghosting everything, and not saying a word about it, you know? Going away for 6 quarters, not 6 quarters, 6 months, or almost an entire year, just to kind of like get away from the mundane. Which, not to say my friends are mundane or anybody around me is mundane. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is to get away from the routine for me. And recently, I've kind of been doing that. I've been slowly kind of backing off from a lot of the things that have been going on. And sometimes you can't really back off. You can't be like, oh no, I'm not gonna be there. But the thing is, sometimes it's nicer to just slowly stop showing up and stuff. And it's been harder, definitely. Like at least for me, I usually was the guy that would plan out things I would do with my friends, right? I'd be the dedicated planner of the group, right? But slowly that hasn't been the case because I've stopped making plans. The weekly movie trips have not been happening. Uh, Weekly raves have not been happening, at least with me involved in them. And what should we call it? Weekly calls or weekly game setups or anything like that. Like those things haven't been really happening, and it's just because I've kind of stepped away from it. And I've done this before. I've stepped away for about 4 or 5 months at most. And it wasn't a slow decline into it. It was very much a rapid one where one day I was chilling, the next day I wasn't. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should go away. But at least for me, from the beginning of this year till now, or not even the beginning of this year, maybe like after the first 10 days, it hit me. And I just realized, I was like, maybe I'm just not meant to be around so many people. You know, it was a nice conversation I had with one of my friends the other night. Or not night, but I guess it was like, it was more of an evening. And it was a conversation about how surrounded I was around people. How out of every single waking moment, I can't really get away. And a lot of people can't. But there is no alone time anymore. Like right now, I'm making the time for this. I'm sitting in this car alone. And sometimes that's nice, sometimes it's not. But when you have so many people around you, from your brother sleeping in the same room as you, to classmates, to friends, to family members, to everyone that's around you. You see them almost every single waking moment. It's not like you get tired, but sometimes you just never recharge. Maybe you crash out about it sometimes. At least for me, it's always been crying. I'd always cry a little bit. You know, couldn't help but let all those raw feelings and emotions out, and mainly it was because I was drinking, of course. But sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes I'll get done with the school day and be like, wow, I'm gonna just sit here and sob a little bit, and it just feels so sad sometimes for no reason. You know, like there's no one thing tethering me to this very moment. Or not this very moment, but this very feeling that's making me feel this way. It's just a bunch of little paper cuts. It's a bunch of little paper cuts with a few wounds in between. You know? And it's like, I don't know, sometimes you wish it all kind of heal up already. That the sewing would go a little faster. The staples would hold a little thicker. But sometimes they leak. Sometimes they open up again. And sometimes the only way you feel is a solution to all this is just getting away. Stepping out for a bit. At least for me, I've romanticized the idea of doing that. Haven't fully done it yet. Don't know if I would ever do it again, but it's just the idea. I know I say a lot during the summer. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna spend a lot of time with me and myself and worry about me, but it's just not a real possibility. I can't get away from people, no matter how hard I try. I always end up back either somewhere talking to someone over the phone or talking to my family or talking to my friends group in it. And yeah, before it was the big reason was because I was afraid of also missing out. That was a big thing. I don't feel that way anymore. I don't feel any fear in missing out on anything. At least not as often. Sometimes it hits. Sometimes it doesn't. And I'm like, that's partially why it's gotten me to do less things. And also, part of me has also been hurt so much to this point. by so many different things that I just can't happen to get over. That maybe sometimes I feel like crying and getting away from it and recharging is kind of the only option. But you can't really do all three things. At least I can't. At least not without making people feel bad. And that's not what I aim to do. I do not aim to make anyone feel bad. I also don't aim to ever cut ties with people, really, unless I really hate them. I also don't really hate. Don't really get angry. And I may joke sometimes about being angry, but it's not ever the case for me. I never really feel truly angry. It's more or less just a sadness. My response to the angry things is just sadness. And that's my response to quite a few things. Is that good? Probably not. Is that bad? I don't think so either. That's definitely probably not the way to go. Maybe I should just cut the bridge already, you know? You guys, I don't think you guys would get that reference, but sometimes there's a few bridges you gotta cut. But I just can't bring myself to do it sometimes. and it's kind of sad to say, I guess, but maybe my dealing with it is just dealing with it, not doing anything about it, really. In the moments in which these things hurt me, I'll have a conversation. I'll make it clear. But that's as far as it goes. There's never really anything past that. There's no real healing. At least for me. I know a lot of people say time heals wounds and such, but it's never really the case. At least for me. I think all these things will forever linger for me. They'll never really go away. Even though I'll say it's okay and it's fine and you're all good or anything like that, it always just doesn't sit well. You know? And it's most likely my fault. Why can't I bring myself to let things go? I don't know. But sometimes I just feel like I also romanticize kind of the tragedy of it all. The sadness behind everything. Maybe that's just the guy I am. And I know a lot of people like to use gut wrenching in terms of things, but I actually just feel the gut wrench. You know, I feel the pain sometimes, and I just let it sit there. It's not like I could do much about it, to be honest. At least not on my own. No matter how much I talk about it, either. It never seems to let up and go away. And that's the worst part. The worst part is sometimes you wish it would go away. But then sometimes you're like, this is just how things are. How things are lived. How the experience happened, how that happened, how this happened, how this is going on, how this is that. It certainly has made me more cautious in where I place my things. But sometimes, god damn, I make the same old mistakes. And I have no one to blame but myself sometimes. And that's just sad. But anyway, I don't know how we led up to this point, to be honest. But this was a nice conversation. It was a nice little breather from everything, especially with all the stuff that's happened to me this beginning half of the year. But being able to have this conversation was nice. And if you listened to it, feel free to just let me know. If you didn't, well, you didn't make this far, I guess. But feel free to tell me. Because that don't mean a lot to me. I'm just expecting that no one's going to listen to it, that's fine. But one or two of y'all had, or have, just let me know. It doesn't even have to be anything crazy. But yeah. Anyway, this has been the first episode of the Hose Podcast. I hope it wasn't too sad, if any, or if anything whatsoever. But this is sometimes how these conversations lead, because of how late it is. So, anyway, I hope y'all have a great rest of your morning, evening, noon, or night. Noon, evening, night. I don't know. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And if you ever come back, well, I'll just be here talking about something. So don't you worry about it. Anyway, love y'all. Have a good night.